Today we're going to take a look at an XT2500. The first thing I will do is go through all the plumbing components on the unit, starting with the right hand side of the cabinet. We have the tricot tray, we call it. Has the main tank road relief, the pulse tank road relief, the main tank tricot, and the pulse tank full tricot. We have an empty tricot to ensure that it's empty if you're doing service work on it. And we have a liquid sample line. Okay. Next we have the pulse tank vent valve, the main tank vent valve. Then we have the micro bulk high flow dispense air actuated valve. Goes around to the back side and ties into the high flow. We'll take a look at the other side as well. The furthest in is the pulse tank dispense valve, air actuated valve. So you can see both circuits, both high and low, tie in to the low flow hose, so you can fill the Perma-Cyl with either the pulse tank, a small tank in the side, 70 gallons, or you can pressurize the main tank and fill a larger Perma-Cyl. The last valve we have in the back, way in the back, is a air actuated valve, a 1/2 inch, and that's the main tank pressure builder air actuated valve. The pulse tank goes up in pressure, pressurizes, and that high pressure liquid and gas go through that valve and out into the external vaporizing coils. Okay, and we have the hose drain solenoid, so when the low flow shuts down, it automatically drains the hose back into the pulse tank. That's the right hand side of the cabinet. I'm going to take a look at the left hand side. We have the bottom fill valve, top fill valve, hose line drain, our 1.5" CGA fill fitting. We have our check valve coming in from the pressure builder coil on the side, the brass check valve. We have the 1/2 inch air actuated valve, which supplies liquid from the pulse tank into the vaporizing coils to pressurize the pulse tank. Next to it, the cylinder there is the temperature probe for the high flow delivery circuit that goes through the bottom valve. Note there is no air actuated valve, so when you're delivering off the high flow, you are manually opening up the supply valve to make your delivery. The last valve on this side is the 1/2 inch air actuated valve. It's called the vent to bulk. That has dual purpose. One is it's the safety for the pulse tank. If the pressure gets higher than 350 psi, it automatically opens and dumps the excess pressure back into the main tank. Okay? It's also utilized to equalize the pressure when you're done with your delivery, so you can lower the pressure in both tanks at the same time. We also have our low flow DP transmitter, our high flow DP transmitter used for the metering process. This is the pressure gauge for the main tank, liquid level gauge, and the pulse tank pressure gauge. The pulse tank pressure gauge is high, goes up to 350 psi. That's the max for the pulse tank. The main tank only goes up to 217. We will be operating it. Operation is no higher than 210. Okay. Along with the liquid level gauge, we have the liquid level chart in argon, nitrogen, and oxygen. As it doesn't have a pump, you can utilize it in all three services. And then we have our control panel with all your manual valves and your flow selector switch for operating the unit. Those are the components of the XT2500. Today we're going to do an operational video on how to fill a 230 liter Perma-Cyl using the pulse tank of the XT2500. Our vessel pressure is 200 psi and we're all hooked up and ready to go. We'll open the valve, So the unit's ready. When you open the door of the XT, this unit is a CGA 341, which means that the road reliefs are open and the pressure must be below 25.3 psi. So the very first thing you do when you open the doors is you close the pulse tank. Main tank road relief, pulse tank road relief. Before you can do any operation, you must make sure that the pulse tank is full. To do that, we'll turn on our power switch. There is no gauge that's showing us what the level of the pulse tank is. So to fill the pulse tank, both gauges are equalized now. We're simply going to open up the vent of the pulse tank and the pulse tank tri-cock, which tells us when the level is full. And we're going to fill the pulse tank first. No operation can take place without the pulse tank being full, as the pulse tank is the energy source. In this case, we're actually going to fill the pulse tank, pressurize the pulse tank itself, and use the back dispense air-actuated valve and deliver liquid into our Perma-Cyl in the low flow mode here for the pulse tank. Let's take a quick look at our coil, and our pulse tank is full, so we're going to close the pulse tank vent. Then we're going to close the full tri-cock for the pulse tank. Now we noted that the Perma-Cyl was at 200 psi, so while we're in the low flow, which is for the pulse tank, we'll adjust our pressure, and I want to be 100 psi over my fill tank on the low flow circuit. So I'm going to set my unit at 300 or 305 psi, and I simply hit the start button. As soon as I do, a P will appear in the window, and we'll watch the pressure climb in the pulse tank. Once I achieve the pressure that I have set, the P will go away and it'll show a go signal. When that happens, I will press the start button. I will press the start button and see how rapidly it climbs, and then I'll hit the valve will open up. Liquid is now flowing into our Perma-Cyl. We're metering the liquid as it's coming through. Once you saw the HHH to start with, the temperature probe is located on the bottom of the valve. Once that cooled down, then I started with my flow rate. So we're currently delivering into the tank right now at 20 gallons per minute. The pressure will drop slowly as the liquid goes out. And that's how you fill using just the pulse tank. There's a couple options for stopping your fill. You can simply hit the stop button here, or you can close the valve, the fill valve. That will shut the system down and the unit is full. You simply back off the line to let the pressure escape, and then you can stow the hose. What we're going to do is, we're just doing a fill demonstration. At this point, you could print a ticket, or you could simply zero out the totalizer. And it's ready for the next delivery. And remember, each time you fill out of the pulse tank, you need to refill the pulse tank. To do that, we need to take the pressure in the pulse tank, put it into the main tank to equalize them, and then I can refill the pulse tank. To do that, you simply open the vent to bulk, air actuated valve in the back, and you see the pressure come down rapidly. The pulse tank is very small, it's only 70 gallons. The main tank is 2,500, so it barely rises. Once they get close to being equalized, and you'll leave this open to start with, once they get close to being equal, then you simply open the pulse tank vent all the way, and you close the vent to bulk. Make sure the valve is closed. We'll open up our tri-cock as well. And I want to do that before I lower the pressure down the road relief. I'll utilize the pressure in the vessel to fill my pulse tank for my next delivery. before I go to the next site. So now I'm filling the pulse tank. And the pulse tank, depending upon how full it is, could take a matter of a minute or two, could be up to 3 or 4 minutes to fill the pulse tank. It also is determined on how much pressure you have in the main tank as well. Okay? We're going to fill up the pulse tank. We'll give it just a minute here. You can see the lines are frosting up, telling us that the gas is coming back and escaping out the vent while it's filling. The proper way to check if the pulse tank was full, with the vent open in the tricock will bleed right here behind the tire. You have a little infusion. That's where the liquid will come out when the pulse tank is full. For our demonstration today, we don't need it completely full, so I am going to close the pulse tank vent. You always want to close that first. Then I will close the pulse tank full tricock. Once that is complete, the pulse tank is full, ready for my next delivery. I need to be down to road relief. So I'm going to open the vent to bulk again, which equalizes both tanks. And then I'll open the main vent. The main vent will actually drop the pressure in both tanks at the same time. If you were to just open the two vents, the pulse tank being much smaller, the pressure would drop down quicker. And if that happens, anytime the pressure is lower in the pulse tank, there's an internal check valve that'll start filling. This way it won't fill. That's been done already. We're just bringing it down to under our 25.3 psi, and then I can open both road relief. So we'll let that come down. You're pressurizing the main tank. That may take a little longer, up to about 8 or 9 minutes. So the key is to get this process going right away before you write your ticket up for the customer or what have you. And you can see we're below the 25 psi, so at this point I will open the main tank road relief. Regulator is right here. And then I will open the pulse tank road relief, which is governed with a check valve. Those are both open. Now I will close my vent to bulk valve, turn that off. I will close my vent. I can stow my hose and close the doors. It's down the pressure, the road reliefs are open. It's ready to go to my next delivery. We're going to demonstrate the operational procedure for using the main tank for filling a Perma-Cyl, generally set up if you're filling a large Perma-Cyl from 1,000 liters or higher, so you don't have to do multiple pushes with the pulse tank, which will deliver somewhere between 200 and 300 liters at a time. If you're delivering out of the main tank, it'll be just like a pump. Once it starts delivering, the level will always stay the same, your flow rate, and you can fill it non-stop without any hindrance with deliveries. Our tank today is at 100 psi, so we'll have our hoses all hooked up. So we'll get our unit ready to go. Make sure everything is tightened down. When we first open the doors, this is a CGA 341, so the road relief's on board. So the pressure must be below 25.3 psi. So when you open the doors, you close the road relief for the main tank. You close the pulse tank road relief as well. Once those are closed, you can turn on your control power. You must have 0, in the totalizer if you're going to change from low flow, which is the pulse tank delivery, to the high flow micro bulk. By turning the switch in the upright position, going to the high flow micro bulk, now when we set our pressure, we are setting the main tank pressure gauge to what we want it to be. Again, our tank was at 100 psi. On the high flow side, you just need to be 50 psi above. So we're going to set our pressure at 150 and hit the start button. When you do that, two things are going to happen. The air actuated valve for the pulse tank will open up for the PB, sending liquid into the vaporizing coils. And at the same time, the air actuated valve in the back, you can see the level indicator is showing at us the flow, is now sending the high pressure from the pulse tank out the valve into the coils on the side of the truck, pressurizing my main tank. And you can see as the pressure is rising, this is now reflecting the pressure in the main tank. And the pulse tank will get up the pressure and stay up on the high side. What you're hearing is gas flow coming back into the vessel from the coils, going back into the top of the tank, and that's where the pressure is coming for rising. Again, we are going to go up to 150 psi before we can start filling. The ideal situation would be to check your vessel first, see what the pressure is you need, get the pressurization going first, then pull your hose, hook your hose up, get it ready to go. Depending on the liquid level in your tank will determine how long it takes to actually pressurize the main tank. Obviously, the emptier it is, the more vapor space you have, the longer it will take to pressurize. When we started out at about 18 psi, we're now up to 36, and it will keep climbing until we get up to 150. We are now getting close to our set pressure. We're at 148. We set it for 150. We have the go. When I press the start button now for delivery, my micro bulk high flow will open. We're waiting for the HHH to go away because the liquid is coming through the high line past the temperature probe, coming across and in. And with that long flow, I didn't have an established flow rate, so I got an L10. Just restart the process. I'll hit the stop button, hit the start button. If my pressure is high enough, which it is, it'll give me the go sign, and what I delivered is still there. I hit the start button again and it will start delivering again. May take a couple of times to cool down that line. We'll see if our pressure spiked in this tank, in our receiving tank. See if that has gone up on us because we pushed that gas in, and that is the case. Now we're at 150 psi. As a result, that's why we're getting the L10. We're going to vent our tank down a little bit. What happened is, as the flow of liquid was coming through the 1.5 inch bottom fill line, or high flow dispense, and coming across, all that plumbing had to be cooled down. All that gas was pushed into our small cylinder and raised the pressure. And as you can see, we're still sitting at the L10 level here, showing an L10 with no flow rate. So again, we'll hit the stop button, take us back to standby. We'll hit the start button, we get the go because our pressure is still there. We hit the start button again, and it's going to start our delivery. Now we have an established flow rate coming. The pressure in the vessel will actually spike up a little and then it'll drop, and we'll start filling. So you may see a little higher flow rate as everything cools down and the flow is going through the unit. We are now coming from the main tank, coming down the 1.5 inch line, cutting across our 1 inch line behind our coils, comes across to this side of the cabinet, comes in the back side of this air actuated valve and out through our dispense hose. That is the micro bulk high flow delivery circuit. Our flow rate has come all the way up to 21 gallons a minute, and it'll still continue to climb as there's less resistance with the cold hoses. If we take a look at our unit, you'll see that our pressure is in fact dropping as we're filling it. We are now down to 80 psi. We were at 110. And once the unit is full, the Perma-Cyl, you'll either hear a popping sound or there'll be a pressure rise and it'll shut the system down. You'll generally see a decrease in the flow rate if that's the case. There's the air actuated valve opening and closing for the PB. We're metering. Notice there's no change in the pressure. Pulse tank stays up around that 300 psi range. And this will be a continuous fill until the unit is full and the Perma-Cyl is done. So this is definitely a good additive versus filling 200 to 300 liters at a time and stopping. Now we have our shutdown mode. I'll hit the stop button and take us back to standby. We'll close off our delivery hose, crack open the valve to relieve the pressure between the valve itself and the check valve of the tank. We'll let that bleed out. At this point you can print a ticket or you can zero out the totalizer. We're not going to print one, so we're going to zero the totalizer out. Hold until we have an E in the window. We'll let go and hold the stop button a second time. It'll go back to 00 and standby. Now there's two things we want to accomplish when we're done and we still have the pressure. One is we're going to equalize the two vessels, the two tanks, by opening the vent to both. We take the pressure from the pulse tank and equalize it with the main tank. Now we still have more stops to do today, so we want to refill our pulse tank before we lose the energy of this pressure. And to do that, we are going to leave the vent to both open. They're very close together. We're going to open the pulse tank vent and close the vent to both. You see the pressure rapidly drop down. That's filling the pulse tank using 150 psi of pressure to do so. And it'll fill very quickly coming out the vent. And we'll close the vent off. We'll close our pulse tank tricock. Now our pulse tank is full, so now we're going to open our vent to bolt, equalize the pressure, and we'll leave the pulse tank vent closed, but we'll open the main tank. And that will drop the pressure in both tanks at the same time. They'll equalize and they'll drop down. Again, if you would just open the pulse tank separately, the pulse tank is much smaller and the pressure will drop quicker. While the pressure is dropping, you can have your hand deliver your ticket to the customer. You can stow your hose. This will take probably about 5 to 6 minutes to come back down. What we want to do now is let it drop down to below 25.3 psi. We'll open our road release, close the vent to bulk, and then we'll close the vent. At this point, we're just waiting for everything to shut down, get down to our road release pressure. Once the vent with the vent to bulk open has lowered both of your tanks, the pulse tank and the main tank, down to your road release level, you can leave the vent to bulk and the vent open and open the main tank road release and the pulse tank road release together. Open them both up. Then you would close your vent to bulk and close the main vent valve. Now it's ready for transportation. Quickly, I'm going to describe the delivering out of the CGA fill fitting, the 1.5" valve. This is if you're doing a bulk tank delivery. Again, there is no air actuated valve, so it's going to have to be done by hand. What you would do then, with the totalizer at 0 and standby, you would turn your flow selector switch to bulk. you would set your pressure where you wanted it to be, over 50 psi over your bulk tank. When you hit the start button, it would start pressurizing up to your proper level. The difference is when you get to go in the screen, you hit the start button, then you must open this valve all the way. You are the air actuated valve letting the liquid flow. If for whatever reason the flow comm would stop, would go to L10 because you didn't have an established flow rate, your hose isn't cool enough, for whatever reason, if this metering stops, you must close the manual valve by hand, hit the stop button, hit the start button twice because you'll still be at pressure. When you get to go, have your hand on the valve, hit the button, and open your manual valve up all the way again, and you'll have an established flow rate. That is for using the CGA bulk fitting going into a bulk tank. Otherwise, your drop down would be the same. Vent to bulk, open the main vent, and bring them down together. And that is the operation of the XT2500.